Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Tuesday, the 13th of March, comes to you from London. The dollar's still just holding on to its short-term bull trend, but really is moving sideways for the last couple of days. Little change this morning, and as a result, the euro dollar is much the same on the reverse, of course, just below the cloud here. We do have some downside targets. This one here, not activated. So interestingly, we're just a little bit flat on currencies at the moment. We are seeing the dollar rising against the yen, so that is looking a bit stronger there. But sterling is actually falling against the dollar this morning, but again, fairly flat over the last few days. And looking at sterling against the euro, much the same picture there as well, and against the Swiss franc. And against the Aussie dollar. Sterling actually is just slowly creeping lower against the Aussie there. Bitcoin recovering a little bit this morning, up 1.7% at one point there, now just under 1%. Of course, still fairly volatile. We are just short-term bullish, but not a very sharp rising trend. Medium term, we're starting to hit some resistance here, so that's quite key. Looking at the US stock market, still just holding on to those gains, looking more and more like a recovery, less and less talk of the markets failing, and the Nasdaq really confirming now. I'd like to see 3 days of us holding this high level, but it looks like we're going to. So looking stronger. Upside target here of 18% on the medium term chart, so that's looking strong. Notice how this upside target was given to 71.50, and we're nearly there now, so you really can't ignore these targets when you see them. Looking at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, it was down yesterday, and now we're seeing it's just still holding that bull trend, so quite key there as well. And the Russell 2000 index is looking strong as well. Not yet making new highs like the Nasdaq, but looking pretty strong. The S&P E-mini is looking pretty good, and we're seeing here that's pushing higher, and at the moment that's looking strong. It will open higher based on the current level. We're up 0.2%, and much the same for the E-mini on the Nasdaq. So quite key there. Looking at the FTSE 100, virtually unchanged this morning. We're just into this bullish territory, but really in the doldrums versus the US. Prices just and lagging line just finding support on the weekly cloud. So really lagging behind the US. The FTSE 250 looking a little bit better. We do have a new thrust target up 8%, but we've got to move higher than that level that we've just seen the last couple of days for that to be activated, and there is resistance there. So not out of the woods yet on the UK market. The DAX looking better short term as well, but do have these big downside targets hanging over us at the moment, so that is a worry for the German market. And the CAC Quarante downside targets that are not activated the same way as we see with the DAX, and we are recovering. And the higher lows, so the CAC is actually looking a little bit better than the German DAX. French stocks looking better there. Looking at Japan, just starting to come through on the short-term chart, an upside target of about 2.7%, but we do have downside targets now, some 20% activated, so that is a little bit worrying for Japan. And looking at the Hang Seng Index, we're seeing here the strong recovery that we've seen here is looking pretty strong. Again, higher low, but yet not making new highs as we're seeing in the US. China off about 0.5%, so not quite getting back through on the medium-term chart, and a fairly flat recovery. So still looking a little bit lackluster, to be honest. And the Sensex was down overnight. We're just really struggling on the short-term charts here on the Indian market, although the long-term charts still look amazing. Looking at the Australian market, again, just struggling to get through on the short term here. But just holding the medium-term trend, so looking a bit better. A lot of upside targets here, so the Aussie market looking pretty good, really. And Brent Crude is down slightly this morning, but just really flat. We're just above the cloud on the short term, medium and long term holding on, but really not showing any clear signs as to moving higher on the short-term chart. And the same is true of WTI. US nat gas hitting $2.80, so just holding on to that bull trend just, but it's really weak in the medium and long-term charts. Taking a look at gold, gold is been up and down this morning, but we're still just slightly bearish there. We've got a downside target to 1275 if we make new lows below this 1315 level, so we need to be aware of that. But the long-term charts still look great, and in looking at the silver chart, much the same picture here. Taking a look at 10-year Treasury yields, just falling back a couple of basis points, so we're sitting here at um, 2.88% on the yield. Still looking bullish. We've got upside targets here. 301 is that one that's just been activated. That will be the interesting one. We've got a 305 long-term upside target. This is the first short-term target we've seen to that level, so that will be pretty key. 4.5% upside, of course. It will make the news once US bond yields hit that 3% level. That will be significant. Taking a look at Apple, pushing higher to new highs, so that's looking better now. Got an upside target here of a further 5% and a short term and a medium term upside target of 31% and 17% upside. So Apple looking strong. Amazon has been the real star. That is really up over 60% in the last several months. It's just really rocketed. When we hit that 1,000 level, I mean it's doubled in the space of a year. Amazon, and just looking amazing. We've got 4% upside target on the short term, 22% upside on the medium term, but the long term, no clear upside targets there. Of course, this has gone vertical, so it can't go on forever, but looking pretty strong for the moment. Google not looking as strong as Amazon. It's just really just struggling to make new highs there. Facebook just sitting in these mid 180s. At least we're holding on to the 180s. We're in the 170s there for a long time. And if we take a look at Microsoft also, that Facebook just struggling to break that medium-term resistance, but Microsoft marching up the hill, still looking good, new all-time highs. So that's tech still holding on. Keep an eye out on these currency moves. We've been flat for a few days. We're probably going to see a move in the next day or two. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.